Captain, incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind.
Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
Moopsie.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Not a great plan.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Hey there, we're those Sci-Fi guys, and this is Those Sci-Fi Guys show. Just two working dudes, different lives, different jobs, but a whole lot of love for science fiction and the fun that comes with. We are your hosts. I am P.S. McKay, coming to you, I don't know, hot from Fresno. Yeah, let's go with that one, shall we?
Hot from Fresno?
Hot from Fresno. It is hot here, although it's actually probably the most mild July that I've ever experienced here.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, and you are, sir?
I'm DT Cavman, and I find myself baffled a lot by some of how you want to intro yourself.
I wish you weren't a liar.
Maybe.
That is completely obvious. If you're going to use that shitty drop, would you at least use it in the correct, context?
I'm using it ironically.
Not a great plan.
See, now that would be more appropriate for what you're trying to criticize me about.
That's true. And I'll never argue with that one.
Yeah.
Phrasing?
See, now that's just a non sequitur, but that has no meaning. So
right now you're just a kid playing with the toys in his toy box.
I like the button machine right here. It's fun. Anyway, we are fresh back from our 4th of July weekend, a long weekend, much deserved for everyone. DT, I know you kind of had it truncated a little bit, but yeah, we had a good time over here at the McKay clan. We had some family come over, cook some hot dogs, and I did my normal show of fireworks with the safe and sanes that I put up on step ladders or 6-foot ladders and light them and everything. And it's fun, play music to it and whatnot. Last 45 minutes. That's a long time just walking back and forth, and I am exhausted afterwards. I quite literally need a whole day after the 4th to recover. But that was your 4th. You got to share with some fellow kith and kin of mine.
Yeah, Broham Gaming and his clan came over. It was nice. We were having. We typically have a relatively small 4th of July party. It's been family mostly, although we've had, my sister's college roommate came one year. Mrs. Cavman has decided the 4th of July is her holiday. So that's what she wants.
That's the one she's staking the claim on to
Yep. When it was when our like a week and a half after we arrived here, we had our first 4th of July, and we had it with just the three of us and my parents on the back deck having some burgers. Most of the house was still not unpacked. But it was nice, and each year it's gotten a little different. And this year was our largest group, and we had a nice time. The weather was fantastic. I sent you some pictures.
Yeah, it looked great. Looked fantastic.
And everybody seemed to have a good time. Yard games, swapping stories, no yada yada crap, anything like that. Everybody just seemed to have a nice time.
Yeah.
And I'm paying for it a bit now too, because I had to we had to bring up an extra set of table and chairs, and a little pop up tent, for guests, and
From the basement.
Yeah. So my knees and back were barking at me, and I had, fortunately, your brother, nephew helped me and my kid take down the tent, and before they bounced. So we put everything, we took everything apart, and then my kid and my dad and I took the stuff down in the basement, before everybody else left, and it's good. But my knees and back were barking a little, and then I hung out with your brother a bit yesterday at the pool club, and I let him kind of talk me into going off the diving board, and I think my knees are upset with me for that too.
He was telling me about that, and I laughed. I'm like, wow, that's like straight from 5th grade, isn't it? He's like, yeah, it kind of was.
It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of people there, obviously, who I know, was from growing up, and then there's just the random people who from my life who've ended up in the area, people I went to college with who've moved here, and now they're members of this place, and people I went to high school, and and people from town but who weren't members when we were kids are now members, and of course the extended members of our huge neighborhood clan. Many of them were there, and it was nice. Just I literally bounced from conversation to conversation with people most of the day, but spent a decent amount of time with your brother, and it's been good catching up, hanging out with him.
I'll say this: his attitude. I mean, it's been a little trying for him with work and whatnot. So, but ever since the club opened, like, he's been a different man, completely. Like, he's had a whole new injection of old friends / new friends that came into his life, and that's exactly what he needed and thrives on.
They were playing. He's been playing pickleball, and
he
just all sorts of. So it was good, and it was good for me. A lot of times I go and I'll, my kid will jump in the pool. I might go hide in a shady area and read or hang out, and eventually wander around and talk to somebody, because there's almost always people I know well enough to have a good conversation with. And then eventually I'll get warm and jump in the pool.
Yeah. If I lived there, I would totally apply for membership, and only to have our mutual childhood friend reject me, because they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't want my riffraffery. I can guarantee you.
Of course they would.
So
you have something very important to all of us.
Weirdness,
money.
Yeah. Money. Well, not so much anymore. That's going towards a new car loan, for frick's sake.
Yeah, well, I feel you on that one, buddy. I'm just glad that the estimate came back from, let's repair this. I wasn't ready to go out and car shopping.
I was pretty confident your vehicle was going to be repairable, but I mean, you can never guarantee with just a couple photos like that.
Right.
Yeah. So DT and I have had a couple car dalliances and whatnot. Mine not as dramatic, but my lease was up. This is the first time I ever leased a car, and in the past, I heard that one could just renew their lease for another 2 or 3 years once the first term is up. We're in a post-COVID world where cars are scarce, and dealerships don't want to do that anymore.
Well, you can, but you can't let it run all the way out. That's another thing. You gotta be proactive with that.
Right. Well, bought the dang thing. I was able to get a good discount and everything, and pretty good rate. But once the interest rates go down, I'm gonna have to refi, because 7.1%. I mean, that's the lowest one can get in this market. But yeah, exactly. So, and it certainly it was the only reason why I could get it was because of my good credit. That's all. It was like,
Yeah.
and thank you for giving me your phone number to be my reference. I told you were not going to be a co-signer, so thank you for trusting me on that one. Turns out I didn't get your number in time, so I put your information there, and then I just put my Uncle Dan's phone number there, and I texted my Uncle Dan. I was like, "Hey, listen, I was like, hey, listen, I have a friend. His name begins with the letter D. I need you to pretend to be him, but I put your phone number down, so you're going to need to do this." And he goes, "You could have just put my name and my info." And I'm like, I couldn't erase it. So, yeah. He was like, "Okay, all good." But yeah, for some reason out here, they require references no matter how good your credit is. The bank does.
I don't recall doing that.
Even with a credit union. See, that's the thing. He was confused too because he's back east. So it's a West Coast thing, I think. I think my brother had to do that when he got a new car out here. I'll have to ask him. Anyway.
Then again, we've never leased, so I don't know.
No, this was buying today. This was to buy. So, and I asked the finance officer, I was like, "Really? Do you do this with everyone?" He's like, "Yeah, everyone. It's just, we just have to." It's like, and he said, like, the reason being is if you stop paying for the, and he's like, and believe me, I'm not accusing you of planning on doing that, but if you stop paying this, we need other people to talk to find out where you are. Like, okay. That's fine. I mean, I can get it. I can understand that scenario being pretty prevalent around here. But anyway, I will say this. The dealership was very nice, very accommodating. They actually knew, they could tell that I knew my stuff. I also told them what I do for my work, which is tangentially related to cars. But I used to do a lot of estimates and everything. And so I know the ACVs, I know all that stuff. So they're like, "Okay, well, here's what we got. This is all we have." And I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." So, but they were very nice. Probably one of the biggest stressors of the whole week for me. Got it done, and now I just have to worry about the payment now.
Yeah, sure, I get you.
You know, so it's like, yeah, good stuff. But your car is being repaired, so that's a happy moment. Do you know how long? Do you have an estimated completion date?
Not yet.
Yeah.
They had to order some parts, and I got a message from them today that said that, you know, they got some parts in, so they would let me know here in a day or two.
I will say,
timeline.
Parts ever since COVID have been on back order for forever. Like,
yeah,
for the last 5 years, it's just been a nightmare. So, yeah. So they're not screwing you over. It's just the nature of the thing.
Well, you know, I get it because of some of the things I have to do for my job.
Oh yeah, you would know that.
And the repair is a beast. You know, some parts are on order for a lot longer than you'd expect. And that's not good.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough putt. You have another car, right? But do you have a rental?
Yeah, my insurance does a pretty good job of putting in. You know, I've got the insurance. I have a rental through when my car is fixed. So,
oh, that's really good, because usually I can tell you in California, it used to be a 30-day limit on first-party policies, but because of the parts issue, they've had to make it a 60-day limit now.
Well, look, I don't know anything about that. You know, I know at the moment when I'm good through.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's,
Well, I will offer any expertise that I have if you have any questions. So just FYI, this is literally what I do. So
good. Yeah, it's just a pain in the ass when you're trying to get your your primary mode of transportation taken care of.
It so is. I mean, at one point last summer, we had 0 cars because I took the Jeep that we just bought. I took it last summer to have some tire repair done. My car was already in the shop. My truck was already in the shop. So at one point, I took an Uber home from the tire shop, and I'm at my house. I'm sitting here. I turn to my wife and I go, "We are stranded here. Like we literally don't have a car in our possession right now." It's a little suffocating when that happens. I gotta say, like, you have no idea how reliant you are on said vehicle, just as a peace of mind aspect when it comes to that stuff.
It's exactly it.
So, well, enough hot car talk with Mar talk.
Yeah.
I should showcase one of those. You've sent me. I'm sure I could find something on the internet. What brings us here today, DT? And have you had a chance to rewatch? Not judging, just curious. That's all.
Not recently, no. I mean, I did this winter.
Okay,
but I haven't
that's pretty
watched
recent.
It yeah.
Okay, where are we? What are we doing here? Like, why do our illustrious followers follow us here today?
Well, we are going to examine the swan song of the original TOS crew in the great movie Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. Why? For what relevance? I don't know.
Damn good movie.
It is.
It's a damn good movie. So,
why, you say? Well, we did that in lieu of doing Jaws.
And did you want to do Jaws? We could do Jaws.
I mean, we could. I mean,
why not? We'll do it next time. That'll be the next one. Oh, actually technically it is science fiction because they're using marine biology, the science of marine biology, and they're telling a fictional story. That is literally science fiction.
Wow, that is a very logical stretch you put together.
Hey, and it works.
It does. Plus, 2 of the 3 main stars have had big sci-fi roles. So,
yes, that's also true. That is also,
and it is
true.
the 50th anniversary, so maybe that would be a good time. Anyway, I was just joking about that, but it is the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and
yeah,
maybe
we do
should
things
do
pop
that.
culture here.
We do, and you know what? Star Trek VI definitely pops.
Yeah, it does. So I brought this topic up because number one, we were running a little thin. Things have been hectic for both of us pretty crazily. And I wanted just some good, I wanted some feel good, like comfort watch. You know, I wanted to I wanted comfort. That's what I wanted. And Star Trek VI probably is my favorite film of the original series films. I know that might sound sacrilege in a certain way. But
that it's the best or your favorite?
That is my favorite.
Well, that's not sacrilege. That's just opinion.
True. And here's some car talk with Mar talk. over here. Hello, you're on Car Talk. Would you care to read the other panel?
Okay, I got to blow it back up. My friends
So
and I are having a problem with our Dungeons and Dragons game.
What does that have to do with Car Talk?
Well, we're supposed to be playing the heroes, but we keep killing innocent NPCs.
Oh. Sounds like your alignment is off. Next caller. Oh, that's good. That's good. Sounds like your alignment is off. Oh, that's good. Yeah. I'm going to remove this, add this to the stage. Here we are. So, good stuff. Spock. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to watch the equivalent of good comfort, food to watch just to get my mind off of things. And Star Trek 6 is fantastic.
Like a movie that's packed with assassinations, wrongful accusations,
serious geopolitical allegory,
and a galactic disaster.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm like, I want to watch Star Trek. Huh?
Said it feels so warm and fuzzy.
It does. It does. So I did that, and you agreed. So here we are.
Just so you know, this is the first Star Trek movie I wanted to go see in the theater. I'd seen Star Trek 4, but I was like 5, and my parents were like, "Hey," because I'd been watching the reruns of the animated series on. They used to run on Nickelodeon, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." Or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever a 5-year-old would say in 1986.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they took me to see Star Trek 4 because it was easily the most
kid-friendly.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, there's zero violence. A woman got a brand new kidney, basically. Good for her.
It was practically a comedy.
It was, and that was like, it would not only just, and we talked about this years ago when we were talking about does comedy work in Star Trek? Because we talked about some real attempts at comedy, and it didn't go off very well. Voyager. But Star Trek 4 was shockingly funny. And it didn't betray the characters of...
But it was
Kirk.
Also supposed to be funny.
Yeah. I mean, fish out of water. I mean, I think you could do a good fish out of water story and have the characters still be true to themselves. And that's kind of like that's the get out of jail free card right there. How that works.
Or something, or dealing with a bit of the absurd, which is what happened with Troubles with Tribbles.
Yes, that is true. And actually, that had some funny moments. Like Kirk orders his coffee. There's a tribble in his coffee, and he says, "I wanted a sandwich, and I got a tribble." There's a tribble in my coffee. Like, yeah. So, long and short of it, I love this movie. It's gotten to the point now with these HD upgrades, and with us having such a high definition screen, like in our iPads or on our laptops, that we can literally sit close to the screen and just analyze all the little things. I do that. I have to do that. It's just me. But you see
in
new
movies
things.
You've seen a lot. You start picking up the things in the background. Like, what is that dude doing in the background right there?
Right. I also caught one thing where there is actually a Federation plan to evacuate Kronos. Like they were the president at the Kittimer conference, the Federation president was literally saying, now part B of our plan to evacuate Kronos will come as hence. And then they cut away. But they were going to be evacuating Kronos. I'm sitting here going, ooh, that's it doesn't necessarily say that the Klingon homeworld was Kronos. Or did it? In TNG, that is. They never mentioned Kronos in TNG. They always said the Klingon homeworld. So it's plausible they could have moved the Klingons from Kronos to a new homeworld, but yeah.
Or a new homeworld to Kronos.
Yeah, maybe.
Or the original. But here's the interesting thing, right? Anytime you ever see pictures of the Klingon homeworld, it's gloomy, like the matte paintings. It's all gloomy and like.
I'll look one up for you.
So I kind of wonder if that is all because of the, fallout of Praxis.
Well, I know that they made it gloomy because Klingons are supposed to be. Oh, geez, you could see this. Okay. Well, there we are. Can I? No. Okay, view image, please. Make this bigger. Okay. All right. This is funny. This is as big as I can get.
Either the matte painting is always it's night.
There we go.
Ooh,
I can do that.
Okay, that's better. Maybe it's night, but there's always these overcast, and there, at no point does it ever seem like anybody's doing anything on Kronos during the day. All the, even the street stuff, like when Picard's getting ambushed in Sins of the Father, it's always at night. And there's never seems to be day on Kronos.
You're right. And then what do they do with Romulus? Romulus is basically Eden. With a very tropical slant to it.
It's definitely a more temperate look, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Not much. It looks almost like it wouldn't be that much different than the San Francisco matte paintings, just with some different landforms.
Okay, I can buy into the idea that they fell backwards into the whole idea that the Klingon Kronos is still dealing with the fallout from Praxis, which is plausible. I mean, the moon essentially exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And the Klingons decided they didn't want to evacuate after the signing of the Khitomer. During the Khitomer Accords, they decided not to agree to the full-on evacuation. Interesting. But I just found that interesting because now we're dealing with the fact that in the Prime timeline, Kurtzman's out, by the way, just FYI. I just found that out from the Tachyon Pulse YouTube channel. But in the Prime timeline, the Federation was trying to help evacuate the Romulan homeworld. So it just shifted over one. It's I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. No, it doesn't mean anything. It's just interesting that it.
Here's. And this just came to me, but the Klingons' key energy producing planetoid in its empire, Praxis, goes boom, boom.
Yep.
Right? Screws the Klingons up pretty hard.
Yep.
Then, 100 years later, the Romulan star goes nova. This kind of starts to smack of Section 31.
Are you? I was just going to say, I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they literally put a deadly disease into the link with the changelings.
By doing it through a guy who's on their side.
Yeah. They literally diseased someone on their side. A valuable asset, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe considered too much of a loose cannon every now and then, a little unpredictable here and there.
Nah, they were just using him as the one way to get at the enemy. He was collateral damage.
Yeah, I know. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. I get it.
Mhm.
Interesting.
But
Yeah,
I just put that together. I'm like, both of the Federation's most major rivals suffered massive disasters.
right.
Now, the Klingons managed to rebuild their empire enough where they were at least a viable threat to the Federation at various points in the future, which is why them continuing to go back and forth on being allies seemed to be a good thing.
Right.
But then the Romulans, they're like, the moon didn't work to slow the Klingons down enough. Let's try the sun.
Yeah, true.
And what happened to the Romulans? They turned into exactly, in some ways, what happened to the Romulans, at least in the Star Trek Picard timeline, is what Admiral Cartwright feared the Klingons would be.
Yes.
He said they would be in Star Trek 6, in this early meeting that, where Spock gets the Admiralty and the crew of the Enterprise in, where he's like, my plan is to make peace with the Klingons. And he's giving a briefing about the whole thing at Praxis, and all that. And then Cartwright basically says, we go ahead and we don't go and kick their ass now, where we'll be in a much stronger position to dictate terms. The Klingons are just going to become, vagrants. And he literally said they would become the alien trash of the galaxy.
Yes, he did. If
this, holy shit, was there a lot of, we'll just call it prejudice in this?
It's, and can we let's go back to 1991 when we were but children. Fans of Star Trek, beginning to discover it through Star Trek The Next Generation. The original series was only available on syndication during the summer for us. So we weren't exposed to it that often.
Sometimes, and I learned this as when I grew up and would, be like watching TV at like midnight. You could watch old episodes of the original series at like random on a Friday, Saturday night at like midnight.
Yeah. Was that with the Boston station?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the different stations because you live in an area that has overlapping markets, so you have two different Foxes, two different ABCs, two different NBCs and stuff that you have access to through Boston and Rhode Island. Okay, what was I going to say? Shoot, what was I going to say, DT? What was I saying? What was I saying? What was I leading up to? What was I saying? TNG. Okay, so us wee little lads, we're basically being fostered off of TNG, and in TNG, the Klingons are the Federation's allies. There's Worf. Worf is there every day. We get to learn stuff about Worf. We like Worf. And then in 1991, when this movie comes out, we have Admiral Cartwright say they're going to be the alien trash of the galaxy. We need to hit them now and hit them hard. Take advantage of the situation. I'm sitting here going, this is old thinking. Like, I as an 11-year-old watching this, I'm like,
there's still about 70 years from the launch of the Enterprise D.
It was jarring, though.
It is
jarring.
And
it was jarring to go from one mindset to the other and seeing the Federation being so potentially hostile towards a genuine humanitarian situation. Well,
I mean, the Klingons in the Federation in this timeline have been in either open conflict or in a Cold War for the better part of at least 30 years on screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have many of these captains and admirals who are like, well, the Klingons have been, fucking with us for all of our lives. All right. They're aggressive, they're conniving, and of course that's the Klingons of the 60s, right? The some of their traits got rolled up more into the Romulans, the political machinations sort of thing. They turned the Klingons as they had the bigger budgets. They made them more aggressive and more warrior like.
Mm-hmm.
Great knives and facial ridges and shit. But the Klingons were the Russians in the original series.
Yeah.
They were playing. They were backing one
They
side of
literally
the planet.
had.
We were backing the other side of the planet. That's
There was literally a Vietnam planet with the Klingons on one side and the Federation on the other, arming each of the different natives. Like a little heavy-handed, by the way, especially when they had the American flag and the Declaration of Independence for some reason. But but yeah, that was literally what they did.
It is that wild. And so this whole thing, and Leonard Nimoy said when they were putting this together, they wanted it to be a Berlin Wall in space. So that was Praxis, right? Everything coming down.
Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Praxis was Chernobyl, which I didn't realize how damaging Chernobyl was to the Soviet Union until I saw the HBO miniseries Chernobyl. And they had a whole episode where who was the leader? Who was the leader at the time? He had the birthmark. Gorbachev, thank you. Humpbacked. President Humpback over there. Yeah. I say that, everyone, because humpback whales in Star Trek 4 had to be changed. There was a joke that Scotty said about humpback people, and when Kirk was referring to humpback whales. And when you say humpback people, that sounds very dangerously close to Gorbachev. So
in
just
Russian.
FYI. In Russian, yes. So
I'm surprised they even let that movie go.
I know, right? Right? Pretty crazy. But I mean, there was perestroika at that point, so things were getting a lot better.
There was only one Stroika. They didn't reach the pair yet until 88.
You deserve that, sir. I'm sorry.
Maybe. It was a cooling and maybe a bit of a thawing of the Cold War, a bit of leaning closer and closer to a détente, so to speak.
Yes.
Russians had to come up with their own word for it.
Yeah, it wasn't French, that's for sure. American English, especially, is super adaptive in taking in foreign words and just using it. You're just absorbing it into the lexicon.
I mean, and let's not forget, in this movie, you get another one of Chekhov's famous Russian appropriations
for the whiskey.
No.
Wait, what? No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Russian epic of Cinderella.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
If shoe fits, wear it.
Wear it, yeah. Crewman Dax. Poor Dax. Got lucky, though.
Yep.
Got lucky.
Yeah.
A couple things I also liked about this movie is that there was no single person out for revenge against Kirk. They weren't copying. Now, Star Trek 3 could be argued it wasn't a single person about revenge, but it was a single person seeking power, and Kirk was in the way. Star Trek 2, it was basically the template that most of the other Star Treks, especially in the modern era, with TNG included, by the way, was about a singular person seeking revenge, and Starfleet was in the way, or they were literally seeking revenge against Captain Picard.
Well, yeah.
This was a whodunit, which is great. I mean, by the way, I really love that it was a whodunit, and it was pretty well done too. The only slightly implausible thing, but I think this is based on history, is that there were dissidents in the Klingon Empire and dissidents in the Federation that were working together to keep them fighting.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Chang was working with Admiral Cartwright. And who did Rene Auberjonois play? That's completely cut out in the current.
Yeah, he's almost entirely cut out until he gets killed in the end of the movie.
But you don't. But they don't reveal him in the theatrical cut. They didn't reveal him. They don't reveal him now. It was only in the VHS cut.
I thought they did in the theatrical because, like, Colonel Worf is like, this isn't Klingon blood, and I thought they pulled off the mask.
Definitely in the VHS. It was in the VHS. I can look, but I'll have to look. I'll
yes,
find
the character's name is Colonel West.
Colonel West, yes. Colonel West got dressed up as a Klingon, tried to assassinate the Federation president, and then did Scotty shoot him? No, Kirk. Yeah. Scotty shot him, knocked him out of the window. He fell, and he bled all over, and it was red. It wasn't lavender, mauve.
Right. Which you needed. It was the lavender in order to keep it from getting an R rating. That's why the Klingon blood, which it was
all the blood was in there.
It was never lavender again.
No,
it was never. How many times Worf got jacked up? It was always red.
Well, and you know what? You know what the funny part is? You would think that us fans would be kind of livid about that. But no, we get it. We understand. We're willing to let that slide. You know, that's the funny part about this. That's the funny part about modern production and trying to blame the fans for being unnecessarily angry about stuff. Don't get me wrong. It does happen. It does. But if you give us a reasonable explanation, like, hey, if we had these floating globules of blood be truly red, this movie would have been R-rated and it would have flopped. Yeah, we get it. Okay. And by the way, maybe Klingon blood looks lavender in certain lighting aspects. I know that they showed light on the Enterprise. I know, but whatever. Maybe it just maybe it just dried out and oxidized a little differently. You know? Who knows? But fans were not up in arms about it. Even though that's a big canon breaker in a sense.
I mean, you didn't see much of it in early Next Generation.
No.
You know, so I mean, and I think the only time you really see significant blood on a Klingon body is this was concurrent with what season?
Whenever unification happened. So I think it was season 4.
No, the unification was season 5.
91, 92. I think it was season 5. It was season 5.
Okay. So again, like most of the Klingon blood you saw was, but again, it's almost like, all right, it's for the big screen now. Ooh, now you get to see more. It's the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's also like, did anybody really get pissy when the Borg looked a lot better in First Contact?
No, actually, I appreciated it. And I recognize that they used the opportunity of the bigger budget to be able to make the Borg look better. I mean, I think that was the reason why people appreciated the Klingons being different in the motion picture. Because they recognized, first of all, you were hit with a visual display in the motion picture. And like you were just overblown by everything. And you didn't know that those were really Klingons. They looked like Klingon ships, but they resembled nothing about what the Klingons were in that opening scene. And then the audience literally had to be told that they were Klingons later. Right?
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, and the funny thing about it too is that that the Klingons, I mean, yeah, the ships looked like Klingon ships, but the Romulans used those too.
Well, that's it. That was the other kicker. That's what I saw from the summer syndication of the original series. I was like, "What? Those are Klingon ships, not Romulan ships. What the heck?"
Cheap budget.
I know. It drove me nuts though after being spoiled from the TNG.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting.
This movie had quite a lot going for it. It was tight. It wasn't a long it was not a super long movie.
No, it wasn't.
It was tight. The pacing was good. They had fantastic, like they got Christopher Plummer, who was actually a longtime friend of William Shatner's. They, I believe, were in this whatever Royal Canadian Shakespeare Theater, like the Canadian version of the Royal Shakespeare Theater.
Yeah,
Royal Shakespeare Company. They were in the Canadian one together, so they'd known each other a long time. They were friends, and getting an actor of Christopher Plummer's status to come and be, in Star Trek was a big win for them too. And Nicholas Meyer directed it, and he's a big Sherlock Holmes fan. And there were some Sherlock Holmes, homages and even outright references in this movie. So it's fantastic. You get, and of course, Christopher Plummer chewed every scene he was in, sometimes subtly, sometimes over the top, but he was delicious. He was fantastic in this role.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he apparently he enjoyed this role enough that he reprised the role for one of these Star Trek interactive video games, like these PC games. It was like Star Trek Klingon Academy or something like that.
Yeah, Star Trek Klingon.
You get to see how he loses his eye in some duel.
That's right. And you showed me that scene. I was actually shockingly surprised that they showed such a big scene integral to that was influential to the Star Trek zeitgeist. That they did that in a video game. Like, that's pretty wild.
And take something else, for instance. And you get to see this like in the theater and in the HD. But for starters, Chang has his eye patch bolted to his head. Notice there's no strap. He's got like screws.
Oh yeah. So. He's ready to just be done with it. Yeah.
But the screws have the trefoil emblem of the Klingon Empire on them. You can't see it in this picture, but if you look closely at like close-ups, you can see it.
They have what?
They have the Klingon trefoil on them.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, this is not a high def picture. Oh, this is decent though. I have no idea what's coming. I didn't put together a slideshow. I'm sorry, but
I mean, what I like about this is you actually get a decent amount of McCoy in this.
Everyone
But
gets a chance to shine.
Everyone does. You get Chekhov trying to kind of help lead the investigation. He gets a little sidetracked here and there. Scotty's figuring out how to do things with the engines, and everybody, all the remaining crew, finds little pieces to help solve the puzzle. Like Scotty finds the uniforms and right, because he's sitting in what is supposed to be the meeting hall, which of course is the conference room in the Next Generation. And he hears this rattling, and somebody just stuffed these uniforms in an air vent. Like, really? In the 23rd century, you're just gonna hide them in a vent?
I know, right?
But okay.
Well, you can't vaporize them, but all right. So here we go. In the Star Trek VI trivia, Rene Auberjonois has said he knew his scenes were edited out of the theatrical release, but was unaware that they had been added to the home video and broadcast releases. He first learned of this appearing at his first Star Trek convention to promote his role in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and fans were asking him questions about his role in this film. He added that he had completely forgotten the name of his character, Colonel West. So yeah, it was put back in. Oh, here we go. Several scenes which are present in the VHS release, as well as most television broadcast cuts, are noticeably absent from the DVD and Blu-ray releases, and are not even included as deleted scenes. These scenes include the visual inspection of the torpedoes by Scotty and Spock, which contains Scotty's line, "That Klingon bitch." Oh, I forgot about that.
Yes, it was about the tear ducts.
Yes. And then, as well as most of Colonel West's scenes, including his reveal as an in-disguise Klingon assassin at the peace conference. However, these scenes do exist on the DVD director's edition of this film. Okay, I do own that. I have to find it in my plethora of DVD books, but
so this movie came out December 6th, 1991, right?
Yep.
And it was 110 minutes long.
Pretty short.
Yeah. It was well paced. And as you recall, it had excellent music. The composer, Cliff Idleman, was actually at the
Boston
Star
Pops.
Trek music. Yeah. Which surprised me. That was and I had better seats than he did.
Yeah, you did. You did.
He was behind me. I'm like,
but I bet that he can write
him.
I bet that he can write a hell of an overture better than you can.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
this movie had good music.
It did. We did sing his praises. I was just thinking about it. It almost feels like it is an echo of another song. Dun, 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 dun.
It does feel like it was a little influenced by Wrath of Khan.
I wouldn't be surprised. Jack Horner did a fantastic job, and he is just an amazing composer. So if I was what's this guy's name again?
Cliff Idleman.
If I was Cliff Idleman, yeah, I would have done some research on that too. And that's okay. That's all right. I mean, it was a fantastic score. It is unique to Star Trek VI, and it had a very uplifting tone at the very end when we were saying goodbye to the crew for the last time.
Yes.
It wasn't sad. It wasn't sad. I mean, Kirk literally says second star to the right and straight on till morning, meaning they're going to live forever. And then you hear the Star Trek tune, dun, 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 dun. Yep. And then it goes back into the Undiscovered Country theme with the lilts and everything. I love
They had the end credit theme, right? That was it. At this Boston Pop Show, they did play the end credit suite from this movie, which is it's light, but it's also a little wistful.
Mm-hmm. But it also has dark undertones. Well,
not so much the end credits.
No, not the end credits. You're right. I'm sorry. I jumped
played.
To different parts of the
because they're playing. It's the overture. They're sailing off into the sunset, and then they have all the signatures. But this movie hits on so many levels because it was relevant at the time with this ending of the Cold War between the Federation and the Klingons, mirroring the ending of the Cold War of the United States and the Soviet Union. You see Klingons having to change, and the breakup of the Soviet Union. This is all happening real time, right?
Yeah, literally at that very moment. I mean, this was not a past retrospection. This was, we're seeing this happen. Let's make a story about it too.
And it was a good one because they could. It wasn't just something like you could pull it out of thin air, like, well, let's invent a new race or something. No, this was something that goes all the way back to season 1 of the original series.
Yeah,
the Klingons
which
and the
meant
Federation.
That it was meaningful to the lore. So
exactly.
You and I are both saying the same thing. We're bouncing off each other. This is good. Let's keep going.
But you have, for starters, you have only the second appearance of a Romulan in the Star Trek movies.
Yes, and he was conspiring too.
He was. He had a little more of a piece in the extended version. Like, I think he was actually sitting in that briefing, the Operation Return briefing. Like, why is the fucking Romulan ambassador
you're
sitting
right.
in this?
He was. Why was there a Romulan? There should not have been a Romulan ambassador on Earth in any way, shape, or form. Never mind in the president's office.
Remember, they didn't go into hiding again until like 15, 20 years after this. Remember, the Romulans disappeared for 50 years before the end of season 1 of TNG.
I know that. But what I'm saying is there were no relations with the Romulans. So there should not have been an ambassador on Earth's soil.
But in Star Trek V, they did have the Planet of Peace, Nimbus 3, which the Klingons, the Federation, and the Romulans all agreed to share together. So clearly there was a little spot of, again, perestroika, détente. There was something right there, right? Well, clearly the Romulans wanted the Klingons and the Federation to keep throwing down, and that kind of, but that also fits with what we saw, already in TNG with the Romulans, meddling in, Klingon affairs and whatnot already, because the Civil War had already happened.
Family. Yeah.
So a
lot of TNG lore had already happened by this movie, which is crazy to think, by the way. It's pretty insane to think.
But the great part about it is that now, again, it goes to character, right? They didn't necessarily ignore TNG. In many ways, this movie helped set up things that had already even happened, that you've watched already.
Yeah,
the peace treaty was at Khitomer.
Yeah.
So
which didn't exist until TNG mentioned it, which was the site of the Khitomer massacre, where Worf lost his parents.
Exactly. So there's that. You have, the Klingon peace treaty, which is why, the Klingons and the Federation aren't really adversaries. time
They
of the
were
next
on their
generation.
way towards. I don't think this was the treaty, but it was one of the treaties on the way to the treaty.
Well, it was like the Narendra 3, the Enterprise C being destroyed at Narendra 3 strengthened that relationship.
That was the final was the final treaty right
which
there.
is why the Enterprise C disappearing from the timeline
was so important.
Because like they showed up there, that go through this rift, and the Klingons think they ran away. No, so they're like, oh well, when things get too hot, well,
Federation's nothing but a bunch of cowards.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that event was so important. And of course, Federation ships arriving to because Narendra 3 was 2 years before the Kittimer massacre. So the Enterprise or Federation ships, the Intrepid, which was where Worf's adopted father was on, was the first ship to arrive at Kittimer in response to its distress signal. So you see
was
already.
It Sergei or Alexei?
Sergei.
Yeah, Sergei. Was he an engineer?
He was a non-commissioned officer. They didn't really specify what he was. He does like starships, so you'd have to assume he was an engineer of some variety.
He did like the technical aspects of the
I have all the
Galaxy
technical
class.
manuals.
Yeah, he read them all.
He was telling that to everybody.
Chief O'Brien, Geordi LaForge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're absolutely right. That timeline checks out. And this was a great baton handoff, so to speak, without having to involve the TNG cast.
Except for Michael Dorn.
I know. They had Michael Dorn in there as like a little wink and a nod. Colonel Worf as the defender for Kirk. And
so
Bones.
just so you know, we have Worf, son of Moog, Moog, son of Worf.
Yep. Yeah. And it's now
So
it's Worf, son of Moog, of the House of Martok. Was it Slayer of Duras? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
would you like some
it was a pretty good announcement. It was almost like Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
you know, it's like the breaker of change, the mother of dragons.
Yeah, that's true.
The rightful queen of the Seven Kingdoms, the first man in the Andals. This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
Yeah, king of the north. Let's talk about Sulu for a second.
First off, this makes sense universe and military wise, right?
Yep.
Somebody had to leave. These guys have all been in Starfleet for like 25, 30 years, and they're all still on the same ship.
So the timeline is this movie takes place 27 years after the first episode of the TOS.
Yeah.
And 5 years after Star Trek V. So, yes. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Was I disappointed that we wouldn't see Sulu on the bridge with the rest of the crew? Yes, at the time I was.
Was now George Takei disappointed? I don't think so.
No, now I know George Takei is a little bit of an asshole, and so is Mr. Shatner. So, and when you have two minds that want to be assholes to each other, you're not going to have a good time. So,
but this works too.
It works very well. I really appreciate it.
I think there was a cut scene where Sulu was in line for the Excelsior position in one of the earlier movies.
They might have talked about it in Star Trek 3.
Something like that.
Scotty was he was going to be the chief engineer of the Excelsior. Then he sabotaged it, by the way.
Captain of engineers.
Yeah.
Still got promoted to captain.
He was still captain. Yeah, that's interesting.
For this movie, there was a picture, a promotional picture of Shatner, Nimoy, Takei, and Doohan all standing there in their uniforms, a picture of the four captains. It was a great picture because it's kind
That's
of a
cool.
random grouping when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, well, where's McCoy? Well, he wasn't a captain. All three of
It's
them
true.
were captains. There were 3
Chekhov was a
captains on the
commander, right?
Enterprise A. Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things I did enjoy about some of the semi-canonical official novels that were reading that were produced, about 20 years ago, was they did a bunch of ones called The Lost Era, which takes place between Star Trek Generations and the start of TNG, right? So eventually Chekhov becomes the first officer of the Excelsior under Sulu.
That's a good pairing.
Yeah. So that was, that's how it ended up in some of these books. And Uhura ended up in Starfleet Intelligence, rising to the head of Starfleet Intelligence.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Spock, Scotty, of course, we know what happens to him. He disappears.
Then he forgets that Kirk died on the Enterprise B,
which, of course, is just what happens when you change things after other things are filmed. It is what it is.
Yes.
you can go ahead and say that Scotty's mind was still a little fuzzy coming out of the transporter.
And again, that's one thing that fans could just write off. Number one, they know it was written later or before Generations, so whatever. Fans can be forgiving to that one line aspect of everything. If you're actually like emotionally stable anyway.
Sure. What I like?
Emotionally stable. Go ahead.
Oh, this scene was among the darkest scenes in Star Trek to this date.
Yes. Now, I sat here. I had to debate this, in my head, because we had a very. I was actually talking to Annie from Drawn to Darkness a couple weeks ago. And I listened to her latest episode. Fantastic episode about the Foxhill murders. Really good. She had listened to our Andor episode and how we had debated the whole presence of SA blank assault in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about situational awareness, which
no,
Star Wars doesn't have quite a lot of either.
We have to be super aware of this situation when we talk about this topic. So,
yes, that is true.
But she was curious about why we were, why we use the language we did. And I explained it's the YouTube algorithm and everything. And then she was asking why I was so repulsed at the idea of having to watch it on Star Wars. And I made my case, Star Wars is, for families and kids and stuff. I understand Andor is showing the adult side of everything. Right.
Yeah.
And the only thing about that is that I appreciate the darkness. When I think about Star Wars, I don't want to anticipate the possibility of SA being involved. And she understood that too. But that whole conversation came back to me when I saw this scene with Valeris getting, let's just say it was a non-consensual mind meld to try to find out who the conspirators were between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. And Spock did this out of anger, by the way. You saw him grab her and bring her to him.
This was the second flash of anger you saw when she shows up in the sick bay.
Sick bay. Yep.
Getting ready to kill the two, hitmen.
Yep.
And Spock stands up there and she's like, you're going to shoot? She's like, I do not want to.
The logical thing is to shoot.
Yeah. And he smacks that phaser out of her hand And the look on his face is like barely restrained fury. It's total betrayal. And this is like, first off, this is a masterclass in acting, both physical,
yes, there's
and
subtlety to
facial
it.
actions.
Yes,
Something
super
that
subtlety.
you can really get for inhabiting a character for 30 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that level of understanding. And it also may be Spock's human side.
It definitely was Spock's human side.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is the difference between the original run and now with Strange New Worlds is they kind of have fun and make fun of Spock for being half human. Whereas here, we saw that him being human caused him to lose control in that one moment of betrayal. And then he lost control again subtly when he goes to mind meld her. Which,
I'm not entirely sure he lost control with that. He very much knew what he was doing.
Well, I mean, with the mind meld, yes, but grabbing her and pulling her towards him, that was an impulse.
You know what I might equate this to?
What's that?
Could you almost hear Leonard Nimoy go, I can live with it?
Yeah. Well, he obviously could.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
But we hear, you're absolutely, but we hear it hurts Valeris. She cries out in agony.
And it's not like a damsel in distress scream. This is a guttural.
Like, oh my God, you're killing me from the inside out.
Yes. I mean, like that. When I saw this in the theater at like 11 years old or 10 years, actually, I had just turned 11. I was like, this is kind of disturbing. Like, what the hell is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
And like this guttural anguish, not even like a scream of terror, but this soul wrenching sound.
Yeah.
From a young Kim Cattrall.
And I forgot the question that she couldn't answer, that she didn't know the answer to.
Where is it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. She
didn't
Sulu
know.
told them later. Yeah. So he kept drilling, and that's what hurt her. And then at that point, he pulls away. He steps back. And at this point, Spock is damaged. Like, he's actually shocked.
The entire bridge is silent. No one says a thing. But you can feel the cringe going on around him. Like, this is wrong. But also, but they're also right. This is wrong, but
you need it.
Again, most of them were also kind of like, I can live with it.
Right.
But there was that conflict in everybody in there, especially when you have Scotty and Uhura and Chekhov standing around like, you bitch, you've been selling us out from underneath us.
Right.
You don't even have McCoy, the doctor, who will try to prevent anybody from being hurt, stepping in.
Right.
Okay.
And let's also I want to point out that it wasn't Spock that did this on his own. Kirk ordered Spock to do this. Now, that was Kirk telling Spock, I'm taking the heat on this one. You know what you need to do.
Yeah, the agreement between them is well, again, that's also to show the level of their relationship, their as simpatico as they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this was a dark scene.
Super dark, exceedingly dark, and there is an equivalent to it. Now, we're not going to really go into, but she was assaulted. She was mentally assaulted. I mean, we literally saw this happen in Nemesis, And Troy literally said it was a violation.
Well, and that's not the first time Troy got violated either. She's got violated twice more in an episode called Violations, and then there was the
Yeah, that's right.
then there was the one where
I forgot about
she was
that.
the
I'm not
emotional
laughing at
dumping
it, by the
ground.
way.
Remember when she was being used as the emotional dumping ground from that?
For the ambassador?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that
which
one either.
aged her.
Yep.
Yeah. She's been through it. And when you're any kind of telepath, you're gonna have an undue weight on your shoulders that no one else will be able to understand. I think that's the theme in sci-fi.
All you have to do is watch
Bester.
B5.
All you do, yes. I was just gonna say Bester. Bester was the personification of that.
Yeah, Bester would do this
He would.
gladly.
Yeah. And B5 hadn't come out just yet at this point. It was coming out soon, like 2 years later.
And I'll just take this quick aside. I like, Walter Koenig as Chekhov. There was a lot, it wasn't a ton of depth, particularly in the original series. He got a little more to do, particularly in The Wrath of Khan. You got to see a little bit more sides of him there, but man, did you get to see the kind of acting chops that Walter Koenig could throw out in Babylon 5?
I know.
Ruthless.
Yeah.
Charming.
He was scary.
Oh,
he was a great sociopath.
And you loved to hate him.
Yes.
But you also kind of liked when he showed up because you're like, oh, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, agreed. One other thing I want to add about this scene here. Valeris wasn't supposed to be here. It was supposed to be Lieutenant Savick.
Yes.
But they couldn't get Robin Curtis back. Are you glad that they didn't get Savick?
Yes, because that would undermine who that character was through 3 other movies. Okay, granted, she had very little to do in Star Trek 4. It was basically a glorified cameo.
Yeah.
And then if this scene was to, first off, the betrayal would be even worse, right? Because they all served with her,
And I don't know how do you think that would have been cheap or would have been super powerful? I mean, it would have been super powerful, but would it have been cheap too at the same time?
I think it was good because it would have ruined a really good character. Now, I guess there was why she was a little more emotional was, I guess there was a plan to have her be half Romulan at one point.
Savick? Yes. Actually, that's how Kirstie Alley played it.
Yeah. So first off, I think Kim Cattrall did a solid job in this
she
movie.
Played a really good Vulcan.
She did.
You know my thoughts about people who play Vulcans. It's very easy to play a Vulcan that comes off as an a-hole, right? Like smarmy and intellectually superior. Yeah, smug. Yeah, that smug's a really good term for that. She was not smug. She was a very good Vulcan, and the same as the Vulcan in Star Trek Picard season 3, the one who got offed.
The bald
on
Vulcan.
The bridge. Yeah, the bald Vulcan. She was a great Vulcan. The actress who played her, she was fantastic. It's very hard to find good Vulcans because it takes a real discipline to be able to do it. I mean, literally, because you have to play a disciplined character. So yeah,
Valeris did get a little smug when she got caught.
Well, that was her coping mechanism.
Yeah, but it was
a lie, an error.
That was Spock's response, an error. Yeah. And her answer was, when he called it a lie, she said a choice.
A choice, that's right.
Which was a great answer. If you think, we go ahead and we talk about all the actors who were in this, right? You know, the original crew: Shatner, Nimoy, Kelly, Doohan, Takei, Koenig, and Nichols, right? They were fantastic, right? They all had their part to play. They all had a piece in this movie, right? It was Uhura who figured out how to beat the bird of prey.
Yeah.
And,
well, it's got to have an exhaust pipe.
Right. She's reading the Klingon, books to, and like relearning Klingon in order to try to make sure that they can make it through the censors,
Funny
when they're getting
scene.
challenged.
She objected to that scene though, because her expectation was Uhura shouldn't have been able to need references to speak Klingon. She should have been able to already do it right off the top of her head.
I know. And in subsequent iterations of Star Trek, I think they've tried to correct that.
Yeah.
Zoe Saldana, that was her. That's, was it Celia Rose Gooding? Is that her, I believe, who does her in Strange New Worlds? And especially this Uhura, by this time. She shouldn't need that.
Yeah, she shouldn't have needed books to translate. And I get it. It's fine. I mean, it's a good scene.
All
a little
the
betrayal of her character, but yeah.
Yeah. All the stuff you see with Sulu on the Excelsior, how he leads, how he commands, his intelligence and his loyalty. That's the reason why a Sulu spin-off series would have worked.
Do you think it would have been too expensive to get George Takei?
They
got him for a Voyager
on
episode.
about it. He wanted a Sulu series. He'd been pitching it.
Yeah.
And I think they whiffed. It could have been if this was if it was like in the streaming service now, you could have gotten him a mini series.
Yes. Okay, so let me give you a breakdown on why I think the execs would have loved to do it, but they chose not to. It's because it's impossible not to notice how much of the TNG sets they used in this movie. And also the Planet Hell sets that they used, that TNG used all the time too. Like, you could recognize the planet that they used for Rura Penthe. Literally was used for the enemy, for every other alien planet.
They just redressed it up a little, but I mean, they also
engineering
had
the not the ready room, but the conference room, which was the dining room. All of the hallway sets were redressed. All TNG sets, and they actually
what I
used
like
the
about
engineering
it,
set, vertically up and down,
Yes.
top to bottom, much more effectively.
They changed the color tones. I think they took out the carpeting.
Yeah,
they still kept the metal plating, which gives it more of a submarine type feeling. But what I like about that is this shows progression.
I'm not dogging it. I'm just saying it's a production necessity to keep the budget low so that they can pay what these actors were required. Good. And
how about that episode of Deep Space Nine they filmed on Voyager?
Right, exactly. Right. But that's the thing. It was easier to have multiple series in the same time frame as opposed to them being able to go to a Captain Sulu series that took place 72 years prior to what all the other sets look like.
Right. And I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying,
yeah, that's my thought.
If you did, and there were a few books written that were fairly popular about Sulu as Captain of the Excelsior. I told you, like, they did a couple of those Lost Era novels about him because it drew, especially when they had gotten to the point where Tuvok was shown to be a junior officer on the Excelsior, which again helps bridge the timelines.
Oh, I don't want to show my search on this. I'll figure it out. I want to see the scene in Voyager of them recreating the Praxis explosion.
Sure. What I do like about this movie, from an actor perspective, is the original 7 were fantastic. They really did up their game, but the guest actors, we already talked about how Christopher Plummer was just played his role with relish. And Kim Cattrall was actually quite good as Valeris. I thought she did a fantastic job, and it was very enjoyable to see that.
Yeah, no, she did a great job.
Then you have David Warner, who we barely even talked about, playing a very different type of Klingon.
That's right. He was in Star Trek V previously as the human ambassador.
Right. And they had
what was it called again? Not Nimbus.
Nimbus 3, yes.
Yeah, Nimbus 3. Okay, yeah. Which
so
we
I
need
guess
to do a breakdown of Star Trek V, by the way. I think that would be an interesting one. But keep going.
Fair enough. I guess they had originally offered this role to legendary screen tough guy Jack Palance.
Oh.
Who, Curly from City Slickers.
Yeah, he had a whole career before City Slickers.
Oh yeah.
I just
no,
I didn't know that at the time.
He played a lot of tough guys in westerns mostly. And he was good too. He was a solid actor. Actually won an Academy Award for Curly.
Yeah.
But
comedy, by the way.
Yeah.
It was a comedy. A good that
tough guy,
that movie, City Slickers, was a good movie.
It was a good movie. But anyway, David Warner is just one of those guys who you can plug into this role. And he brought such a, I would say, grace to Gorkin that you don't really expect from a Klingon.
No.
He was regal and humble at the same time. And of course, they based the look on Abraham Lincoln. He had just the chin strap beard, but he was maybe the most agreeable Klingon you'd ever met.
Mm-hmm.
He really
probably the most human.
Maybe. He really did reach out, and Kirk, of course, still dealing with his grief and prejudice. And that's one of the things he came to regret. I didn't even think to take Gorkin at his word,
Mm-hmm.
Which was another thing, is that these characters had to grow past their prejudice, and that's something Gorkin said to Kirk.
Dude, I would have done the same thing.
Our generation is going to have the hardest time with this piece.
Yeah, and
the dinner devolves into nearly into an argument over getting crushed and the terminology used, inalienable human rights.
Mm-hmm.
The Klingons accusing the humans of racism and accusing, everybody
Homo sapiens only club.
With present company accepted, of course.
Yeah.
Even Spock's like, no problem, bro.
Yeah. No offense taken.
And then as they're all quoting things, and Chang drops, "We need breathing room," and Kirk drops Hitler.
Hitler, 1938.
Yeah. By the way, gotta love how many Jewish actors were in that scene.
All right. Illuminate me. I know of 2.
Yeah, that's enough. One of them was the one saying the line. Let's not forget that.
No, it's also true. And actually, he had his hands like this, and he goes, "Hitler, 1938." puts his mouth behind his hands, like, how about that? Let's take a
Yeah.
look at the side-by-side comparison for the opening scene of Star Trek VI and then what they showed in Voyager as the 30th anniversary send-up.
Well, they got the same character actor back.
Yeah.
And then they proceeded to screw that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
My God.
See, now it's shaking more in the movie than it was in the episode.
Again, better.
But it was the other way around.
It.
Punch it. Did you say punch it?
Turn into the wave.
Yeah.
You know, you could just even tell the difference in the film type they're using.
Yeah. That's a wide angle lens they're using in Voyager.
They did do a pretty good job of recreating the scene, though. What Flashback screwed up, though, was that they killed Valtane in that episode. And yet, at the end of the movie, when Sulu's whole crew is sitting behind him, that guy is sitting there.
He's there. Yeah, that's true.
This was a fascinating scene, this briefing scene.
Yeah,
because
one of the only original sets that they used, too.
Yeah, it was a good scene. And, Brock Peters back as Admiral Cartwright.
There's Rene Auberjonois.
That is not Rene Auberjonois.
Oh, let's just.
He wasn't in this scene.
Let's just pretend.
But Brock Peters, of course, went on to play Joseph Sisko in several episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, we know.
To great effect, by the way. Brock Peters was awesome.
Yeah, he was fantastic. See, now we're getting in.
I gotta tell you, you got a real good performance out of DeForest Kelley in this movie. Not that you don't get a good performance out of him, but oh yes, the patch.
The patch, which I keep an eye out for every time Spock puts it on him. Which in VHS you could not see him put that damn thing on. You could barely even see that it was there in standard definition, which is weird. Look how big that is. Like,
and they didn't even decide to search him.
No, it's just out there in the open. Like, okay, like you're just gonna wear the same uniform. Gotcha. Probably one of the weaker points of the whole plots, but I'll let it be. You see Leonard Nimoy planted on Shatner's shoulder. It's subtle, and you can see it as he turns into the turbo lift to go to the transporter room.
Yeah.
But that's good. Oh, there's that scene. See, now we're in the HD photos.
Yeah.
Okay.
You also get look at how rough Kirk looks right now.
Yeah. Yeah. He was only there for 12 hours. It was longer than that, I know.
Yeah.
It was 48 maybe, but
yeah, they were there a couple days. Fire.
Fire. And this had that what's your favorite line in this movie? That McCoy says.
What is it with you anyway?
No, but that's a good one.
Aside from a touch of arthritis, pretty good.
Oh my God. Okay, keep going. The one line
so many.
in this scene.
Oh, I'd pay real money for him to shut up.
Oh my God. It's in that very scene. Lock and load, Jim. Patience ready. Yeah. Lock and load.
But before then, that's when he goes, I'd pay real money for him to shut up.
He does say that, yes. And
which should really mean something in a cashless society.
I agree.
And of course, they're about to kill President Red Foreman.
Yep.
He has maybe one of my favorite lines of the entire movie. this president is not above the law.
Yeah, that's good.
And it was
Good.
And I thought it was way more forceful in my memory until I did a rewatch. But he says it with a quieter conviction, but there was steel in it. And I'm like, man, that's why he like such a good tough guy too.
It's true. Like a tough guy doesn't need to be loud. A tough guy just needs to be forceful.
So as I'm rewatching it, as an adult now, I'm like, Kirk, you've got to say President Red.
And he did. Right here.
Colonel Odo.
There we are.
Kirk Enterprise. Like we don't know who
I know, yeah. He goes, Mr. President, Kirk Enterprise.
After he tackles him off the podium.
Yeah. Yeah, like, who are you? It's good. It's good.
And as we walk down the list of people, the names we've just thrown out, just a bunch of, real solid character actors, who literally can do almost anything. And you had them all in this movie, and they were all really sunk into their roles.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. Real good.
I mean, do we want to say that this is the perfect movie? I'll be honest, when I hear perfect movie, this movie does not come to mind.
I think Wrath of Khan Wrath of Khan is the most perfect Star Trek movie.
But this is a very satisfying send-off.
This was about as good a send-off as you could get. I mean, they nailed it. They stuck the landing.
They really did. They really did.
And
sorry.
Valeris, the cat. Yeah, right. Initially, the character of Savick was supposed to appear as the traitor, but Gene Roddenberry objected, so that's why they weren't. And Kim Cattrall didn't want to play Savick as well. I guess she originally did.
Oh no. Well, on that note, we're just going to go ahead and start. No, we don't want that one. I'm sure DT from the high ground. Until then, you guys keep dreaming. We'll keep working. So long, everybody. We're those sci-fi guys. It's out there. And we know DT's coming from the high ground. Those Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by Alpha Sci Productions, produced by DT Capman and P.S. McKay. Ocean by Music by Aiden under Creative Commons license. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow P.S. McKay at X or at P.S. McKay, or go to thosescifiguys.com for past episode information. You can now find us on Spotify, so head on over there for our latest episode. But don't worry, you can still find us on Apple. We're also live on Rumble. You can find us on YouTube with live video podcasts and be a little presence on Facebook, so be sure to leave a like and a comment and let us know how we're doing.